Well, hello everybody, and welcome to TFT Tinfoil Talk. And today we're getting into symbology, or AKA the reptilian mind. Very interesting conversation. We talked about it a little bit before. It's kind of hard not to talk about it when you're dealing with TFTs in general. But today we're going to delve into certain aspects of it. I mean, to be honest with you, we probably do a 20 video series on the subject. But happy to have you guys in here. We're going to have ourselves a little bit of fun today. We do hope that you guys check out our links down below and particularly hit me up on Twitter. We'd love to have you on the show if you want to give yourself an opinion or you have a suggestion for a show or you want to be on the Drawn and Quartered Ultimate Edition, which we had a great one last week with Dan Frega. If you want to hear about interviews, sperm donation and DMVs, definitely go watch that show. It's very interesting. Dan Frega was very intimate and elucidating about his life. It's pretty cool. But anyway, we got this week to look forward to. We're going to be diving into it, starting off today, of course, with TFT, and we hope you guys enjoy what we got to do. I got to talk about here. But of course, first I want to introduce my guest I have, and I'm going to start out with the man who needs no introduction. As he comes under the lights and sound pumping from the arena, he walks down the alley, heading toward the ring, lightning blasting out of every orifice. As he approaches and swings his giant leg, barely even having to step over the top rope into the ring, he is Thundero. And he's going to
Into the
smack
ring.
down. Go ahead.
Into the ring.
Into the
Uh-oh.
ring, baby.
Uh-oh.
Into the
That's not a
ring.
good place for whoever's on the other side.
That's
That's not a
true.
good place to be.
That's true. That is true. So how you doing today,
Good.
brother?
I am spectacular. I got Chinese food.
Ooh,
That's always a good day
yeah.
when you get your Chinese food. I got a cat in here who
Well,
apparently
don't
wants
eat
out
the
now.
cat. I know it's Chinese
No, no,
tradition, but let's not do that.
no. Other than that, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous
Is it?
outside.
Oh,
First spring we've had in like 5 seasons or 5 years because for some reason we kept going right from winter to summer. There was no nice little middle period where it's nice 60s, 70s weather. No, 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 no. You don't get none of that. You get 50 to 80, 50 to 80 for five
wow.
years in a row.
Well,
Hey,
we
we did
are.
the same thing this year.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, it's an El Nino year, so everything is much more moderate when it comes to weather.
Mm.
So, but that's a good thing. That's awesome. We got the same thing going on. Everything's been very casual coming in. I mean, the summer's starting to touch on us. We've had a couple of rainy days, so we get the humidity starting to pack on top of us. But that's all right. But glad to have you here. Of course, guys, we're also joined by the modeler extraordinaire. He is Model 3. How you doing, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm really good, dude. It's not a great day, but I got myself a cup of coffee here. I'm sitting with a couple of friends. We're gonna pontificate about some ridiculous notions, which is always fun. And
Well,
we're
I'm
gonna,
glad you recovered from your brush with death last
yes,
week,
that's
getting
true.
corona.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. Of course, I would probably be more accurate to say my internet had the Rona, but that's all right. I'll take it. I'll take it. Just write it down as that. But I hope everyone is safe from the current ongoing pandemic. Although it looks like it's
All right.
all wrapping up now, isn't it? And I think you have a lot of Western authority, and well, I'd say world authority that have a bit of egg on their face, and they're trying to backpedal a lot of the situation. How do you think it's all going to work out? Because obviously, they needed to react. This is not a nothing; it's a serious situation, but there was way overreaction. How do you think the Western authorities are going to save face on this situation? What do you guys think?
Well, we're starting to see some of it already. The intelligence agencies in America, which granted, that's a very, very strange word, intelligence agency, a strange term.
Hmm.
Um, but they have said that now even Pompeo came out, I think it was earlier today, and said that it looks like there's what was it? How did he use it? Basically a lot of evidence. He used a specific word, but I can't remember what it is. That
Preponderance?
this thing, this thing, no, no, it wasn't that.
That's a
Let's
good
not
word.
get too crazy. This is Pompeo we're talking about. Uh, that this thing came from a lab in China. Like it's pretty much even the government's now confirming.
Yeah.
this was a bioweapon.
Well,
Whether it was an intentional release or not, it definitely was designed to be one.
and seeing as
Well,
CNN
you
and
know that the
MSNBC are so much against it, I would kind of lean that way. Go ahead, model.
intelligence agencies, though, released an official statement this weekend, though, saying that they disagree that it was released in China.
Mm.
No, I know. He didn't say it was released. He said he doesn't know if they released it intentionally or not, but it definitely was made in a lab, is what he's. Well, he didn't say
Yeah.
definitely, but he said
Well,
it strongly looks that way, that it
I
was
Well, and
think.
made.
that's what they disputed that too, and that's our intelligence. What everyone's calling the deep state now. So
Oh,
they are
you mean
still
propaganda?
digging
Oh.
it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, understand that this idea has been around since frickin' early January, and actually, it's been out since December in China. And I think the general consensus is it's not a test or a direct assault of a bioweapon. It simply was a lab that was working on such things in partnership with Canada and several American universities, oddly enough, and it
Harvard.
just got out because there are a bunch of frickin' tools that don't do their job right, which is China in general. I mean, shoddy work and half-assery is the motto of the frickin' country. Understand that, right? And I think that's what it really is. It just was by accident it got out, but it doesn't really matter. I think per se. For me, the most important thing is China needs to be held responsible.
Yeah.
My take is that it's not over. They're not going to let it go. This is going to go all the way and spring back up in the fall, and it's going to be a major election issue. And
Oh yeah.
some people are not going to let it go.
Oh no, I'm sure
This
they
is
won't. And of course, the communists, socialists, Marxists, whatever you want to call them, they're going to double and triple down. They're not going to take and admit any guilt whatsoever. So it is what it is. And of course, I wasn't just talking about the Chinese communists, by the way. But nevertheless, yeah. Well, okay, That's a little bit of our update of what's going on in the world. Hope you guys are doing well. Hopefully, everyone's getting back to work or soon to get back to work. Hopefully, your families are healthy. Hopefully, you are doing well. But let's come over to the chat and say hi before we jump into today's topic. We got Roger Heller in here, of course, and he's always happy to give us what a nice fella. I like Roger,
I like
man.
Roger. Yeah,
Yeah, he's a nice
he's got
guy,
good
man.
comments.
Well, he's got a good positivity. I love it. We got Lady Celtic Moon in here. Always happy to have her. Howdy all. Do not drive me crazy, okay? I won't. I promise. We we
I can't
have.
make any
You
promises.
can't make any
Just
promises. Okay, that's fine. We got Curious 2A in here, which is nice. And the metal. Hey, how you doing, dude? We got Zach. It was a night of dicks in the water and jizz in cups. It was, dude. It was the weirdest damn show we ever had, but it was also epically awesome. Definitely go check out the Dan Fraga show, man. That was pretty cool. We got Eric in here. He says, cool. We got Briscoe in the house. Yes, we do. Hannah Kirk. Hello, Hannah. We have Brian the Observer. Chester, will you cover as above, so below? I can. Well, we certainly can. The problem with it's not a problem. The thing with symbology is I wasn't joking. We could do a 10 or even 20-part series on the subject. You really can. There's so many
Yeah.
angles you can get at. There's so many specific things. And the thing with symbology is it's not new, right? This is something that the leadership and rulers of the entire human history have used. I mean, where do you think religion comes from? But anyway, Nick Cisa, Reptile wins. They always do, dude. It's kind of the point. Bullet says, wrap up as it continues for the next 18 months. Oh, good. Yeah, come on now. It's got to be ending, dude.
it's
Disney
not.
owns it.
It's not going to.
It's got to, though. I mean, it's the
No, there's
people.
too much profit to be had. It's not going to end.
Dude, do you
Oh, it's
realize
gonna
how close America and as well Europe are to civil war?
These governors have to be dragged out of their mansions and shot in the street. It's gonna end.
Police are still arresting people for being in parks.
Yeah, no,
It's not.
that's
It's
gonna
not
end.
going
That's bad. I can understand in other countries, but in America, we have this little piece of paper. It's called the Constitution, and it has the Bill of Rights in it. And all these laws and things they're doing are actually unconstitutional. They don't have
Yeah.
a right to do what they're doing. They really don't. And it's
And
shocking to me that they don't get that.
Attorney General Barr did put out an official memorandum or whatever it's called to basically remind all of these police officers and all these police districts and things and local, state level AGs that they must still obey and respect civil rights and everything they're doing.
Yeah, no,
So
they do. Yeah.
the pushback's happening. I honestly think there's going to be some serious violence before some of these state governors let go,
Well,
because nobody wants to see that happen necessarily,
no.
but it's already escalating everywhere. Just to the north of me, it escalated pretty bad the other day.
Mhm.
It's going to keep happening, and it still looks like Virginia is probably going to be the hot spot.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to be completely clear, if Northam, his heart ceased beating, I don't think the world would weep. But but I do think we're on the tipping point right here.
Yeah.
We're getting close, and we're getting close to the weather where people actually will commit mass violence. It's called riot season for a reason. It's not too hot, but it's no longer cold, so people
Yeah.
will go outside and be comfortable. They won't go
Sure.
outside when it's 100 degrees and 100% humidity and they can't breathe and riot, but they
Which is
will
the
when it's
best
70
time,
degrees.
right? But yeah, no. And the good thing about it is, if these governors don't back off, there will be federal support. Because one of the great things about our current, president is, it's shockingly, is he turned out to be quite the constitutional Republican, dude.
Mm.
I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, and
Can I tell you something?
you certainly
I,
can.
I have an inside source. He's an old man now, but he was in the Reagan administration
Hmm.
in the White House, and he has said repeatedly, because he still has connections, and people can believe me or not. I'm not going to divulge who that person is, but he has said repeatedly that there is an ongoing, very serious, very volatile war going on within the federal government.
Oh yeah, I believe it, dude. I
It
believe it.
is they're trying to keep people from realizing what's going on, but there is a coup
Oh
going
yeah,
on,
no. We've seen it. It's an open
and
queue with Schiff
that
and
is the part of the reaction to
Pelosi and
this
such.
corona.
No, I
It's
see.
why the reaction is so extreme, and everything is going to be extreme from here on out.
Yeah. Well, no, and I believe it.
Did you see what Trudeau did in Canada?
Something stupid, I'm sure.
He just blanketly outlawed a bunch of different classifications of firearms. Named a bunch of stuff, military style assault weapons, and
What does that even
they're
mean? Oh God. Uh,
anything scary.
we could.
There is actual meaning for it. It's just nonsense
So
words that lefties made up.
they're gonna try to do that here. That's coming. So
Oh, they're going to try.
What
Try
if
is the
we do a TFT and just title it Guns?
I like.
YouTube will probably dump it.
Maybe. That's all right. We get dumped all the time. But there are a couple things, comments in the chat I'd like you guys to address, if you don't mind. Let's see here. Thundero, Nick says that your Gerald Briscoe avatar worries him more than the current pandemic.
Good. That's the
Good.
goal. I
That's the
want to
goal.
make you as
Yeah.
uncomfortable as possible.
Worry. But here we have actually a point coming in from Eric Hawkins. He says, "Am I seeing a snow speeder on model screen?"
Yes, a little tiny one.
Yeah, it is pretty. Show them how little it is. It's pretty cool. Look at that, and look at the people. Point to the people with a knife. Point to it.
I don't know if anybody can see them
I can.
because they're
Yeah.
so small.
Look how teeny
I'm
that is.
actually using a 10 times magnifier to work on them because they're so small.
That is cool,
So
though, dude.
We did that last night. I made a 3D model of the cockpit and the figures, and then I printed it out last night.
That is
It's
cool,
pretty
dude.
remarkable how well that printer prints.
Yeah, and in such small detail too. That's But how many printers do you got? 3D printers you got?
Just one.
Oh, just the one. Okay, but I'm
Uh,
assuming it's an industrial one
It's
for your
it's a
shop.
pretty high end one. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's
It
neat. We
prints
always.
down to 1/3 the width of a human hair.
Ooh, wow, dude, that is really small.
25 microns
Yeah,
with an
especially
85 micron spot.
with Booster, because he's bald.
Sure.
Yeah. Mhm, mhm. He's not in here to respect it. Hey, we got Zach in here. How you doing, dude?
Hey, what's up, Chester?
I'm doing really well, man. Happy to have you jump in with us. We're going to be talking about symbology. Are you ready?
Nope.
Thanks.
Which Zach do we have?
Oh, the
The dumb
Zach,
one.
Zach Bradley.
Oh, okay.
No, just call me a young lad and just assume I know nothing. So
Yes.
I'm gonna be
Well,
that idiot. I'm gonna be the idiot on the side that makes accusations with no backing on it.
That's
so
right.
That's where I'm standing.
Or you can call him the Golden Boy.
Don't worry, I assume most people know nothing. It's fine.
That's
Yeah. But this thing, you can confirm it though. You can
Yeah,
confirm I
yeah.
know nothing.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get into it then. Let's see here. Let's share this out. Share my screen here so you guys can see what I'm looking at the same time the other guys. All right. So what I'm going to do first, I have a presentation, but first I'm just going to kind of talk about symbology in general, and we'll just kind of have an open conversation. And then I'll give my presentation, and we'll interact with that as we go. But first things first, I just brought up, I just did a word for symbols, and these are one of the things that came up. Now, of course, what we're looking at here would be considered mainly religious symbology. And it depends on how you take that, I suppose. But the interesting thing I like about this little JPEG I brought up here is the fact that if you pay attention and you really look at all the symbols on the page of all the different religions and all the different, past and present, ideas and symbols of these religions, I'm kind of hoping you guys are seeing a general consistent theme in shape, right? They look very different, but the question is, are they, right? And understand that one thing I find very fascinating about the ancient peoples, where a lot of these symbols are coming out of course, is their use of negative space. And being over here with all these artists over the past year and a half, it's been really interesting because I've learned a lot about negative space from them and its absolute value. For before we get into that, though, what do you guys think of this page here? That's just full of symbology from around the world and throughout history. What do you think? Anybody?
Anybody going first? Well,
Let me be
symbols
dumb then.
obviously are supposed to. They're supposed to convey an emotion or a thought.
Yeah.
In a pictogram. So that's the point. And like I think that concept is easier for people to understand that are more familiar with like some of the Eastern philosophies, because they have words like in Japanese and Chinese that it takes paragraphs to describe in English.
That is
Whereas
true.
that one word, like something like Zanshin or something, or Zen or Tao, or things like that, they encompass these meanings and philosophies.
They do. And of course, the interesting thing about Zen, I don't know what the Western perception of it is, but you can actually encapsulate Zen down to a single idea. It means perfection without thought, is what it means. And the perfect example of Zen is an athlete doing what they do because they practice so much that it's become muscle memory, and they're not even thinking about what they're doing; they're simply doing that. That is Zen, right? Interesting. Yeah. What do you think here about these various symbols, Zach?
Well, I don't. It's a very interesting thing. Is that you're talking about shapes.
Yes.
And to be honest, it's I don't know, because the thing that's throwing me off is actually just the Christian cross, because it's longer and all the others. Other than that, they can all just kind of be put into a box, and it kind of feels like they're radial from a box.
Mhm.
But it's just, other than the cross, they all kind of feel that way. Like it's supposed to be like this, like almost like a stamp, in that sense of how do I say it? How do I say it without it?
I don't know.
I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I think
Come on, now's your time to shine.
I know, it's my time to shine. Oh, I know nothing about this stuff, so I'm like,
Yeah. Well,
Like I
when you
noticed
look
them.
at it, you said you see a box. Everything is radiating out of a box. Might I
Mhm.
suggest a circle instead?
I would, but the thing is that it doesn't really apply to like the swastika
It
and a
doesn't?
few other
Are
things.
you sure?
Yeah, I wouldn't because that's not the first shape that it hits me.
I see.
But
Uh,
when I see a box though, it can be fit in the box,
Well,
and that's why it's
and the
like
box is an important symbol unto itself. That is true. But all of these things can be brought back to a circle, actually. The interesting thing, if you look at some of these various symbols, we could go into here. I didn't separate them out because it wasn't my main thing I was going to talk about. But just to talk about a few of them, of course, the Star of David is a very old symbol. It's much older than the Jews. Well, it's much older than Israel or Judah. Let me put it that way. But of course, it's other than its various other representations. It also represents the male and female. It represents as above, so below, as one of our chatters had mentioned. It's a very intense and ancient symbol. And the funny thing about the Star of David, as we Westerners see it, you realize you can find this on religious temples all over the world, right? It's not just a Jewish symbol. You find it in Asia, you find it
Absolutely.
all over, right?
It's
Mhm.
on our money. It's
Yeah,
on all kinds of things.
yeah, it is. It's a very ancient symbol that, of course, we
It's on the
identify with the
federal
Jews.
seal.
It is. That's right. Yeah. But another one here. Let's take a look at. You talked about the swastika. Well, the swastika, interestingly, although it's tied into all the other ancient symbology, it also has a very practical history if you dig back into it. And of course, you see there's many versions and styles of the swastika here. But the swastika actually is a representation of the Big Dipper, right? And the reason for that is the Big Dipper is kind of interesting constellation. During the year, the Big Dipper actually turns like a clock, and you can tell the season by what position the Big Dipper is in. Right, it literally clicks through the year as it would a clock, and of course, what the swastika originally is coming from is that each arm of the swastika is simply showing the Big Dipper in its various seasons. So the swastika is actually a seasonal clock. If you look at the history of it, it's kind of interesting. Now it has more deep symbology, and that's the great thing about symbols. They have so many more in-depth meaning than their practical use. Let's see, what's another one we talk about? I like this one down here. I don't know if you guys can see my pointer. I think you can. But right here, see this one? It has the P and the X. Do you guys know what that is? Anybody? Nobody? Okay. But that one's really interesting because supposedly, Constantine, the Roman emperor, before he was emperor, supposedly he was sitting in his tent and he had a dream of a symbol. And he came out and he started painting on the shields of his men. And this is the symbol he painted on it, of course. And then they went into battle underneath this symbol and they won and they continued to win. I don't know if you guys realize it, but this is the original symbol of the Christian church. A lot of people associate the cross with them. And of course, the cross is way older than any of that anyway. But that's the original symbol of the Christians, not
hmm.
this cross imagery, which has become constant in modern time. But then again, that's a lot of things we see with various authorities. They like to unify their symbology, right? But let's see, any other symbols on here interesting before we move on?
Well, I was going to say about the cross, the actual the Christian cross, the way it's normally written or it's normally
Shown,
portrayed.
yeah.
It has of course, it has the four extremities,
Mhm.
and there's three that are identical squares, and the bottom longest one is actually two
It
units
is.
compared to the other one. So it's actually an unfolded cube.
It is, and I have a little bit of that in my presentation. But the extension of the cross, because understand for most of history, the cross was simply an equal distance cross, right? It's what we call a plus symbol, I guess. And this is a more modern version, meaning past couple thousand years modern. And not only does it represent the Saturnal square, but it also does something very specific. It's something that the Catholics have. It's an ancient idea that the Catholics have included in their religion just in such a dynamic and eccentric way. And you'll see as I get through what I mean by that. But let me go ahead and jump over to my actual presentation, and we can start talking about some of the items in here. And of course, if you guys have any ideas or anything you want to talk about, just pop in, and we'll get into it. All right. But let's see here now. When we talk about symbology, there's a lot of things we can talk about, and there's probably a lot of stuff you guys know. For instance, here we have the logo for CBS, right? But of course, it's also the Eye of Providence, right? And when we think about this symbology, you have to start asking yourself questions. Why do these companies? I mean, it's just a broadcasting company, right? Why are they using this ancient image that you can that's on our money? We see the Eye of Providence everywhere. Of course, it goes back to the Eye of Horus, and of course, the implications of what that means. Why would a broadcasting company have such deep, deep symbology in their logo? Why wouldn't it be something simple? You know, why? I mean, do you guys have any opinions on why CBS would do this?
Well, there's a lot of different theories as to why there's so many of these. I'm sure you're going to get into more of them,
Hmm.
but a lot of these major companies, huge brands, have ancient symbology in them.
They do.
You could
Yeah.
there's few different reasons why they could do it that are completely, non-nefarious. One would just be that everybody knows them, so it's just easy. It's easy marketing. People automatically have it in their mind, like the
Sure.
singular eye. It's on all of our money. It's everywhere all the time. That would be one of them. The other one is it's simple. It's easy to remember. I mean, look at that. It's easy to remember. Um, there's also, of course, the theories that it's much more nefarious,
Sure.
and that it's much more about secret societies, interconnection between the elites, and just a signal to each other that, hey, you know we're on the same team here.
Mhm.
uh, Stuff like that. It's probably hard to know which way is the truth. Personally, I lean more towards that latter part because it's awfully coincidental that they use so much ancient symbolism in all of their marketing.
Mhm.
Almost every major company does it. I only say almost because I can't think of one that doesn't, but there might be one. So in case somebody wants to play, oh, but what about that?
No, it's
That
pretty
game,
deep. Yeah,
it's a very deep well,
it is.
and I don't know one way or the other. I mean, I don't think anybody but they know. But there's a coincidence, and then there's a pattern, and this is too much of a pattern to be a coincidence.
Well, there is a theory on that too. That among these groups, if you do believe in the secret societies, or however much weight you put in that there's almost an element of a game to them, where they like to put enough out there to just kind of tell you what they're doing,
Hmm.
but not completely.
Yeah. Well,
And in like in organized things like Satanism, that is actually part of it's kind of like one of their, I don't want to call it an ethic, but that they just outright are out front about what they intend to do.
yeah. Well, to be fair, the Satanists are a bit of a joke. The Saturnists are not. Now, there's not too disparate a difference between them, but as far as
The
their
Saturnists are
action,
serious.
they're very serious. That's my point. Yeah, the Satanists are more about do as you will and take the responsibility for the action that you do. Right, it's really what a Satanist is. But it's just bizarre if you really think about it, because if you understand the history of CBS, then you would assume that the symbol that they would have used would have been something like, I don't know, an old timey radio mic. That might have been probably more appropriate. But no, they went with this thing. And there are many examples of companies doing similar weirdness with their symbology. And of course, there are some points that you can make when we're talking about where a lot of these companies started out coming from, because at the turn of the century, the 19th century, coming in the 20th century, sorry, or even no, the 19th century as well, there was a huge return and a resurgence of interest in ancient times, particularly Egypt. There was all kind of these Egypt parties, and they would do all kind of stuff like literally get a mummy and have it at the party so you could look at it. They would do a lot of this stuff in the 19th century. And so there was a lot of this kind of occultism was popular. One of the things that people don't understand about Harry Houdini, of course, he's a great magician and escapologist, I guess would be his main thing. But another thing he spent a lot of his life doing was going around and trying to debunk mysticism. He hated it. He hated the con man, the snake oil salesman, the chicanery. He hated it. But there was so much of it going on at the time, so that you have to take that into account. It's not surprising that a lot of companies were getting into this deep thing because they thought they were clever. And I want that to be said because some people might put too much credit to just people having fun. I think there's a little bit of that involved. It's not all, I think, this deep, organized symbology.
You really wanted to get that point across there.
Yeah. Well, I think we would all agree to some extent that the television is probably one of the most effective propaganda vehicles ever created, and probably will not be surpassed. You could say internet, but that's really an extension of the same thing. It's moving pictures and voice. That, I mean, until they can directly transmit stuff into your brain, it probably will not be improved upon. So even if in the very beginning of television and broadcasting, if it was generally, harmless and in good intention for just putting out wholesome programming and it being entertainment, that certainly certain groups identified what it was and how important it would be to them, and they moved in hard. And pretty much all the media companies, what is it? 90% of all media is owned by 6 companies in the world.
5, yeah.
5, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's almost everything.
Yeah.
So if you ever, I hear this conversation all the time. Why doesn't someone come along and do an alternative to YouTube? Because they can't. They won't survive. They could put a bunch of money into it, and it will be suppressed, and their money will be wasted.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we need a Boogaloo, Chester.
I know you guys, you revolutionaries keep coming back to the Boogaloo. Zach, are you ready for a Boogaloo? Are you Boogaloo proper? Are you are?
You know it.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I'm in Texas.
Oh, damn. All right, then. Don't mess with Zach. But let's move on here. It's the same conversation, but just me moving the picture on. Here's another symbol that you see a lot of, whether you realize it or not. This, of course, is the black box, the Saturnal box. And you see this in all kind of logos everywhere. Even if they're using negative space or what have you, this Saturnal black box is every freaking where, dude. And it's very interesting how widespread this is. And I kind of wonder, is this an orchestrated thing or is it just people glomming on? I'm not sure.
Well, I do think, to be fair, I think there is an element of geometrically, some of this stuff is so easy to arrive at. Like, take, for instance, the swastika, which is such a divisive symbol. If you've ever drawn maps or you've tried to draw logos or you've done anything where you've arranged things, you'll see how easy it is to arrive at some of these symbols. Mm-hmm. It's not like it took a lot of effort and thought to get there.
No,
same thing with a square. A square is a primitive shape that surrounds us. So, and that's just to throw that other angle that a lot of times I think these things are arrived at just by you sit down and sketch, and how many times have you sat down and just drawn a cube?
Yeah, sure. And also keep in mind, I didn't put up an image, but of course we know that the hexagon in the northern hemisphere is Saturn. Of course, the hexagon is just a flattened out box, right? I understand that. I already talked about that, so I didn't put it in here. But there's another thing about a square that I think a lot of us forget. It's a unit of measure, right?
Mhm.
And one of the interesting little thing when we're talking about the swastika one of the arms of the swastika, which you see a lot of that in many type of symbology. It's 2 and 1. It's 2 and 1. 2 and 1. Right? It's two squares and one square. And in math, this ratio, especially in geometry and trigonometry, calculus even, this 2 and 1, whether it be spatially flat, two-dimensional or three-dimensional, is a constant, right? So in any kind of mathematical formula you're dealing with, if you take something that is in a space, geometric space, and if you take anything that is 2 and then 1 over in any direction, it cannot correspond to what is in the original square. So whatever mathematic you have in that original square, if you go another square up and one to the right or left, up, down, any angle you want, it cannot be the same number. They will not function that way. So not only do squares have measurement, but the L itself have measurement. This is why in chess, for instance, the knight moves like it does, because it is a mathematical constant. It is inevitable that you would have a piece moving on a board like that in such a game. So the square, don't forget, it's a unit of measure, right? And I think we tend to forget this. And continuing with the same theme of measurement and squares, of course, here's the original cross, and this symbol is possibly one of our most ancient, maybe. And it's used in many, many ways. Do you guys have any comments on the square or the cross before I continue?
I do not.
Thundero?
No, not really. It isn't. Well, one little thing. It is interesting how old the cross is.
Yeah.
Uh, and unfortunately, and this is going to trigger the Christians, it's not a Christian symbol.
No.
And reality is, you shouldn't be displaying any symbol like that if you're a Christian. But that's
This
another
is
topic.
true. This is true.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. And Zach, why don't you explain why that's true?
Because it's considered idolatry
It is.
to have any symbol.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. But it's interesting that every damn church you go into has this symbol all over everything.
Yep.
Hmm. And of course, the original Christians, the Gnostics and such, they didn't have any kind of symbology like this. They didn't wear a cross. They most certainly didn't, especially in those days, because they were considered illegal because the Romans considered just another Jewish sect. And keep in mind, when all this was going on in 70 A.D., there was a huge revolution going on because people were fighting over who was going to be the next emperor. So they certainly weren't wearing any kind of symbology whatsoever, and certainly not a cross. But no, the cross is really, really ancient. It's been used for a long time, and if you go back to the most ancient writings that we do have, the cross is used a lot. Now, I know people enjoy the topic of Nibiru, the 10th planet or 12th planet, I guess is what it is. And of course, it was used to represent that, but understand the cross was also used to represent Jupiter and later Mars. And a lot of this, of course, I think comes from what they were seeing in movements and stuff like that, or at least their understanding of the movements of the planets. And anything that would cross in front of itself. And when they went through certain astrological changes, their different planets would move across each other at different times. And this was fascinating to the people of ancient times. So the cross, of course, is coming out of that as far as the oldest reference I can know of. But it was taken and used continually after that. And then, of course, the Catholics, who were all about selling, I mean, they're some of the best salesmen in history when they put that religion together. Because understand, the Catholics was a orchestrated bureaucratic attempt to gain a control through religious means. Can I say that?
Well, it's the truth.
It
Just
is.
Catholics don't like to hear it.
No, it is the truth. Now,
No, it's the religious arm of the power in the world.
yeah,
There's the financial, there's the military, and there's the religious arm.
yeah,
And the Catholic Church is the religious arm,
and
the Vatican.
to be clear, I want to put a caveat here. I understand, and I strongly stand behind the difference between the faithful and the faith. There's a difference, and I
Mm.
personally think there's a great need, especially in the world today, for faith. I think religion can be extremely useful in the management of society, and possibly because we like to put a lot of negative and dark intention behind it. But of course, this is TFT. Conspiracy theory is about darkness, isn't it? But there could also be simply a part of managing humanity and understanding that religion is a very good way to keep a cohesion within a society. And we've lost that in modern times. And it's been banged on and beat by a certain group of people that I can't mention because if I do, I will get banned for life from everything that has to do with the internet. And I'll have little people come to my house in little black suits and such. But
Mm.
you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Well, and the atheists tend to get very militant on this, and
They do.
I've always thought it's so short-sighted that do you not realize that there are a lot of people who are only as good as they are because they fear going to hell?
Yes.
So
Oh,
why
yeah.
would you ever want to take that away from 7 billion people? Now, of course, it's not all 7 billion that are into that, but why? I mean, why would you ever want to take that away
Yeah.
when people are already bad enough as it is? If you get everybody thinking there's no consequence, what is society going to be?
Hmm. No
And so,
fear. Fear.
atheists,
Yeah.
come on, live and let live.
It's true,
Seriously.
dude. But I mean, fear. Your point is very, very, very lucid, dude. Because fear is such an important factor of being human. It's very important. It's what keeps us good. You're not good because you're good. You're good because you fear the consequences. And the smarter you
Absolutely.
are, the more fearful you are. This is why
Or
low IQ people are so dangerous.
if you are responsible and of good character, you can maintain yourself without that fear.
You can, yeah,
But
but it's an endeavor.
I would say most people aren't quite there.
No, no, I'd agree. It's interesting that Zach has some a very direct opinion on this. Would you like to add anything on with this as I scroll through these three images and hopefully you guys are seeing a shapal theme? Zach,
Sure. Am I supposed to say circle now?
you are.
Okay, circle, and yeah, no, I actually, my next book is exactly about that. What if scientists were able to prove that God doesn't exist, and what would happen to society?
Oh, there would be complete chaos. Yeah,
Exactly, and so I
lethargy,
have to,
suicide. It would be
and,
bad. Yeah.
and I actually started a webtoon like almost 2 years ago that was exactly about that, and I have some stuff I could show you later if you want to see it.
Oh, that'd be cool. I didn't know you were as into that as you are. That's nice, dude. I'm glad to have
Mhm.
you here on TFT. Nice. All right, let's take these three images we have and move into another segment here. This is just kind of a wrap up of those three symbols, and of course, we talked about the extended or elongated cross being simply an unfolded box, and of course, this is very true. We also see how the black box is used so much. We see the symbols all over in logos. We see that the certain Orthodox Jews still use the little box on their head. We see how the Muslims have their black box in Medina, which is actually a giant stone inside that box. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Oh, in the Kaaba? Yeah.
Yeah, the Kaaba. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
not the box they're there for. It's
no, it's the stone. Yeah, and
yeah.
it's huge, by the way. It's the size of that box, and a lot of them believe, especially you go back in ancient times, that is one of the three faithful stones, one of the god stones that were sent from the heavens, space, and dropped onto Earth. There are three of them. Of course, we don't know the truth of it because you can't get over there and test or look at that damn thing. You get mutilated. But it is a very interesting object for sure. But then, of course, down the bottom, I show these various shapes and their involvement in the world we have today. And just to wrap that up a little bit, to show that symbols and shapes are very important. And of course, you guys know that. But I want to move into an. Is there anything else before I move into the next segment on this particularly?
Move
Not for me.
along.
Move along. All right, cool. Well, here's the next thing I'm going to move into. You guys might be a little surprised by this, but Apple. Now, Apple is a very, very interesting little thing. Of course, we have Wozniak and Jobs, right? And of course, there was another guy too, which everyone forgets. But there was three guys that created it, but these two guys in particular are the ones that are known and have persisted. Now, the thing that's very interesting about Apple is they are a perfect example of many things. All right, they're a perfect example of the intelligentsia and its absolute abhorrent destruction of the youthful mind within the universities of the world. But it also shows a perfect example of the hippie to the yuppie, right? Because these two guys came out of the hippie thing. They were both in communes. They did the whole rebelling against the Vietnam War, and they were full on hippies, 100% hippies, and they were smart hippies, especially Wozniak. But the reason I brought up the Apple symbol is here because I want to kind of get into what exactly does this symbol mean and why did they choose it. Now, before I go into my little elucidation on it, do you guys have any opinions of what you think it is?
Well, my first thought would be on the Garden of Eden, the apple.
Right? Taking a bite out of the apple, Eve, right?
Taking a
Right?
bite.
Yeah, sure, sure. What do you think, Thundera?
Yeah, that's pretty much yeah.
What about the
I agree.
colors, though?
Well, the colors are
It's a gay apple, obviously.
Is it?
yeah.
Is it? Well, because if you look at the color spectrum here, it's not correct, though. The color
Yeah.
spectrum is not right. It's off, right?
Well, that makes sense for a gay apple.
Okay, all right. Well, I hate to disappoint
How
you, but it has
dare
nothing
you
to do with
assume it's
homosexuals
colored?
at all.
It is
Yeah.
actually correct depending on where you start. So I think that's an important detail,
Yeah.
right? If you start at red and go up and then finish and come back up from the bottom, it is correct. Well, why is it shifted?
Yeah, no, I think there's a reason behind it. And another thing I would add to that before I go to Zach is I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think the identification of the rainbow flag and homosexual Adelaide, I think that came in the 80s, actually. I'm not sure. If someone could fact check me on that. When did the homosexuals started using the rainbow flag? It would be very useful. But what do you think, Zach?
No, I got the same Eden vibe, and I'm not sure about the colors of why, other than weren't they trying with the Macintosh trying to push? No, never mind. That wasn't until that was way later. Never mind.
84. Yeah, that was 1984.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about like color screens and stuff like that, and
1978.
Now, the original though it wasn't a rainbow, right?
No, I'm going to get into that. It wasn't a rainbow. It was actually much more of. I'll get into what that is, what it was. But no. Thunder. He's talking about the release of the Macintosh in 1984 is what he was referring to.
No, I'm answering your question. 1978 is when the rainbow flag was
Oh,
created
oh.
by a gay artist named Gilbert Baker.
Well, there
And
you
of
go.
course, San
And his
Francisco,
love for Judy Garland.
Well,
the most
then
dangerous city in the
there
world.
there could have been some attention to it because the original logo was not this. The original logo was something else, which I'll get into in a minute. I didn't actually bring it up, but I'll get into that in a minute. But
There's rumors that Jobs actually died from HIV.
yes, and of course the fact that he kept saying he had girlfriends and stuff the whole time, but most people consider him to be gay. So there could have been some acknowledgement of that, but I don't think it has anything to do with the logo, though. I really don't, and let me explain why. And I bring this up because uh, you know, we have a certain group of people who, whether they be truly ancient or at least attaching themselves to ancient things, we're at least seeing 200 plus years of this kind of consistent thought. At least 200 years, right? And it's very possible that they were simply during that revival of ancient Egypt and stuff that they kind of glommed on to these ancient ideas and used it. It doesn't mean that these things have been around for thousands of years. It doesn't, but at least 200 years, right? And I think that these guys, you have to ask the question: were they enveloped and supported by such organizations, or were they themselves glomming onto the concept? And I'll let you make your own decision on that. But I think they're very important because we could talk about Starbucks and Starbucks, the deep symbology in their siren on their cup, and there is a lot of it. And there's many companies we could get into, but I think this is the most fascinating one. So here we have a picture of them when they're young, showing off their circuit board. And I want you to make a couple of notations here. If you look on this side of the where I have their original, commercial for their thing in a newspaper, and it's using words like bite into the apple, using the word bite. Now understand that Wozniak later said that the apple has and the bite in the apple has nothing to do with bite. Now understand that bite uh, is a stream of 8 zeros or ones, true or falses, ons and offs, to represent which are each 1 bit, and that is the building function of a computer, right? But he, even though they use it in their original advertisement, he says it has nothing to do with that, which I find interesting. But I do want to point you to something else you might have already noticed. This is their very first computer that they started out with. Understand that, and look at how much they charge for it.
Oh yeah. Right.
Right? Now, are they just being smart asses, or is there something deeper? Right? I mean, it's interesting, right?
Well,
Why?
look at their little, catchphrase too. Yeah, they changed bite, but bite into an apple, and then they have the mark of the beast right
Yeah,
next to it.
exactly,
Like
right?
that. No, that was intentional. No
It
doubt
is
I
about it.
would think
intentional,
so. Yeah.
but are they just being smart asses? Or is there something deeper to it? Because I could see a bunch of D&D nerds coming up with some new product and saying like, "Yeah, it'd be really cool, man. Let's hide a succubus somewhere in something." Or you can see it, right? You can see a nerd doing something goofy because they think it's cool, right? So
It could be a bit of both, though.
it could
Could
be
be
a
a
bit
bit
of
of both.
both, and that's kind of my point. But this is very interesting. And this is 1976, by the way. This
I think
advertisement.
it's important too, people to understand that 666. Everyone thinks of it as the number of the beast, but in um, to the Saturnists, it's completely different. And there are so many places that number shows up
Hmm.
that it's just that number influences a lot of things.
It does,
I'll give
and
you an example. If you were trying to measure the angle of tilt on the axis of the Earth,
mhm.
how close do you think you could get with the most brilliant minds working on it? Well, that angle is 24.4 degrees,
Mhm.
right? So what does that leave from 90?
6, 6.
66.6 degrees.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, okay, it could have been one more decimal, it could have been 0.5 and it would have changed that number. But there's so many places that these numbers come up, and numerology is really important.
Yeah.
Symbolism.
It is, and keep in mind that imperial math, as we call it, opposed to metric math. Of course, the imperial math is coming out of truly ancient times, even older than Egypt. It's going back to Mesopotamia, and of course, it's coming out of sexagesimal math, which is the original math we used, even though they had different measures and words for it. And sexagesimal math is really much more accurate and useful, especially when it comes to doing anything that's calculus based or dealing with 3 dimensions or even 4 dimensions. And that's the reason why America keeps it, right? Is because it's a more accurate math than 10 base metric. 10 base metric was taken and adopted by the British because it was a way to unify economics. Metric system is really good when it comes to dealing with money, but sexagesimal math or imperial math, which is much easier to say, is actually math, right? So it is interesting that they use these things, but I don't know. My question really is: are they just a couple of hippie nerds goofing, or was there something deeper to it? Now, when we talk about the apple, however, and the rainbow and stuff like that, I think there's some interesting things you might not understand about it. For the longest time, a lot of it is a representation of Newton. The reason why they use the apple, from what they say, is because of referencing Newton. And there's something about Newton that you might not know. A lot of people, of course, he's the father of modern physics and the creator of the language of physics, of course. And he's a very important fellow. He is. And we still are kind of operating on Newtonian physics in many ways. But another thing about him that you might not have known, he's also the father of color theory. He's the one that used prisms and lights and stuff to prove the spectrum of color, which brings us back to the rainbow of the apple. This isn't a rainbow flag that we would see the gays would use. It is actually a representation of Newton's use of light and the fact that they were the first people to be able to put visual imagery onto a screen, because IBM and those other, Hewlett Packard and stuff, which Wozniak started at, by the way, those guys were using computing in a purely digital, non-visual way. That's really the groundbreaking thing that Jobs and Wozniak did. Well, I should say Wozniak did was they gave you a computer that was visual, that could be seen, and this is why a lot of people call them the fathers of computers, because of what they created, although they're not technically. So these are some of the things that they say. What was the influence on their imagery was more Newton, but the bite out of the apple I think is far more fascinating. Now, and I'm going to give you guys an opinion to respond to this. Let me just get through it. Now, as Thundera and you guys had said, you're talking about the Garden of Eden. Now, these guys have denied this vehemently. All right, that has nothing to do with that, right? And Wozniak even made the outrageous statement of what is even that, right? As if he doesn't know who Adam and Eve are, which is ridiculous.
Sure.
But actually, it seems much more. I believe this side of the story. I think, and this is coming into something that Thundera said, that the apple, the bite out of the apple, doesn't represent Eve in the garden. It represents Alan Turing. Now, because Alan Turing, who is the image here down below, this is this fella right here. Now, there's a movie made by recently, had Cumberbatch in it, talking about him. And now Turing is an interesting fellow because he's the actual creator of the modern computer. This is the father of the computer, right? And he also was arrested for homosexuality. He had various chemical things done to him at that time, neutering, chemical neutering, and things like that that they did to homosexuals at that time. And of course, the interesting thing is, do you know how he died?
I do
Anybody?
not.
Yeah, he took an apple and he injected cyanide into it, and then took a bite of it. Mm.
Well, that'll do it.
That'll do it. And that's, I think, even though because understand that Wozniak and Jobs have been very, they avoid the answer to why they use the symbol. They avoid it. They don't. They've never answered it clearly. They've given us so many different rabbit chases throughout the decades here. But I think this is what it really is. It's a representation of Alan Turing, the creator of the computer, and his tragic death. And I think it does bring back to all the rumors for all this time that Steve Jobs was a gay guy, even though he vehemently said he wasn't. He had girlfriends, wives, probably, for all I know. But I think it also represents the appalling thing that happened to this gay man. And I think we can agree it wasn't right what happened to him, especially as how important he was. But I think this is what Apple symbology actually means. And although this is a different segment, it's not separate from the greater whole, which I'll get to in a moment. But I don't know. What do you guys think about my idea? Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I far off? What do you think, Zach?
I don't think you're wrong. I think there's a lot of stuff that is going on that we don't know about. Talking about all this reminds me of that episode, or not that episode, that season of that show that no one likes. What is it called?
Oh, CW?
No,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
it's not as bad as that, but it's bad. American Horror Story, the apocalypse, where it's like basically the devil's controlling all the stuff, and then they have the nuclear holocaust, and it's like two nerd geek guys that kind of just need cocaine all the time, essentially, but they're like brilliant in their robotics. I don't know. It just a lot of this stuff. If we're talking about Apple in that way, it reminds me of that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Thundera?
don't know.
No, I agree with you. It probably is what it is. It's these uber autist nerds like these guys are like to signal weird things about themselves and the stuff they make. They do it all the time.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's accurate.
Yeah, but do you think it's just that, or is there something more insidious involved?
When it comes to Apple, I would always lean towards Insidious because you want to talk about the stereotypical evil company, especially its founder. You're looking at it. They wrote the book on modern day evil capitalism,
They did.
and
And they still
so I
do.
I have absolutely no problem believing that it's far more insidious than that. Their Apple is literally one of the worst companies on the planet as far as their business practices and the way they treat their laborers. It's completely unacceptable. It's why they don't really build that stuff here because we have labor laws and
Yeah.
East Asia doesn't really.
No,
So
they don't. Yeah.
they can do whatever they want to them, put ridiculous rules over them and work them to death to the point where they're suicidal and want to jump off the factory roof, so they have to put nets around the factory to keep
Yeah.
them from doing it.
Well, and you said that is a common practice in Asia. It's usually to keep the high school kids who fail their tests from jumping off buildings. But nevertheless, that's a different conversation. Um, but it is interesting, especially when you compare Jobs, who of course became the face of Apple, even though Wozniak was the real guy who got a lot of it done, to Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates is a complete tool these days, but then again, I think he's always been a tool. But Bill Gates is very, very different than Steve Jobs, right? Bill Gates was all about the money. He was all about the dollar bills, y'all. I mean, that's what he wanted. He wanted to be rich and famous. And therefore, even though there is some symbology in Microsoft, I mean, look at their logo for goodness sake. Gates was much more about much more of a capitalist than Jobs in some ways. Although Apple is certainly extremely capitalistic. It's not what I mean, but you guys get what I'm saying about Gates, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And his love of China, sure.
yeah. That too, and his wanting to put a chip in all humans so we can be traced and we can put our bank accounts in there. He really likes that damn chip thing, doesn't he? I mean, but
Yeah.
here, any of you guys want a damn chip in your body? Any of you?
Nope.
No.
Absolutely fucking not.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
don't you think though that a lot of this stuff starts off pretty innocent because
It could.
unless you have like a guarantee that someday you are going to be a huge corporation.
Mhm.
I mean, I think if anybody who's ever sat down to design a logo, you do try to incorporate meanings into it.
You do.
And in most cases they're not nefarious, it's
Mhm.
just you're trying to symbolize something. And so, at that time, I can't imagine that those two nerds had anything, other than just the thought of trying to create these computers.
Yeah. No,
That
I
probably
agree.
money wasn't even a factor.
Especially for them.
There's maybe
Yeah.
always the hope, we hope we're really successful with this venture, but it was the project that.
Yeah. No, that's why I asked the question. Is it just some nerds or is there something deeper to it? And I kind of lean toward the nerd side. But I think the actual meaning is right there. They chose the apple to represent Newton. They chose the color to represent Newton because they were introducing the first visual spectrum, the first color box, right? And the bite out of the apple was simply to symbolize Alan Turing, who they had respect for, and because he's the father of computers. And then it also has that symbology, that enticing sexual attraction of the Adam and Eve story. I think it was very, very genius creation of an icon, a symbol, actually. But I think that was the extent of it, personally. Now, some people take it a lot deeper than that, but I don't. I agree with you, Model. I think these are just a couple of nerds that were trying to make a little rebellious statement. Because keep in mind, the very first thing I said about these two guys is they were hippies. They were activists. That's what they were.
And in the 70s too, homosexuality was not an accepted thing
No, it was
at
not.
all.
Yeah.
At all. And even going through the 80s, I mean, it was pretty much it was the butt of jokes. So either if Steve Jobs or both of them were homosexual, they certainly would have tried to hide it while they were building their company,
Yeah,
because that would have affected them.
Well, and then let me give you a little thing that just popped in my mind from that statement you made. I remember when Charles Manson was going through the trial, and I think it was after he found guilty. You actually had this reporter. I can't remember his name offhand. He was a pretty famous guy, but he actually, and that was in the late '70s, right? Or was that early '70s? Late '70s, I think. I remember the reporter. Maybe it was early, but I remember the reporter making the statement, and it's very interesting you mentioned that because he said, "Well, at least he's not a homosexual." Right?
Hmm.
Because of course, Charles Manson had a harem, so he certainly wasn't a gay guy. But it was just funny that even at that, the homosexuality was so looked down upon that even this absolute monster that was Charles Manson wasn't. At least he wasn't a homosexual, right? I mean, what a statement. I remember that very clearly. I saw it in some documentary or something. I thought it was quite interesting. But anyway, we're going to continue this conversation and go into my third segment and let these guys talk about anything they want to as well. I'll probably do that between the two. But let me catch up with the chat real quick. Eric Hawkins says, "Holy crap, that is tiny. I didn't realize until I saw the hands. I'm sure that is what the ladies tell him too. Oh, God. One down vote for the Prime Minister Trudeau. That's true. Say no to the duck. What's all this stuff going on with the duck lately? I've heard a lot of people making duck jokes.
StreamYard, right?
Oh, okay. Say no that this is racist. There's like 30 crosses, one onk. Okay. Well, I think that's the running theme, right? They're all very similar shape. Is this Chester's coexistence bumper sticker? It might be curious. Be like water. Ooh, yeah, yeah, Bruce Lee. You're telling me ancient Japan didn't know if it was hot or cold until they looked in at the stars? I understand that, but it's about the math of astronomy, right? Joe says dolphin and anchor. Yeah, no, Starbucks. Talk about the peace symbol, Chester. Well, the peace symbol is pretty interesting, Nick. And I'm kind of this is another interesting thing. The peace symbol, of course, is the inverted or bent cross, right? So once again, we got that cross imagery, and they used it specifically to talk about as above, so below. It's one of those other symbologies that we see a consistent returning of theme, right? And with the fork or the bent down arms of the cross facing down, of course, what does that symbolizes? It symbols below, meaning the evil, the Satan, the dark forces. And when it's turned upside down, it's facing and representing the upper good forces. And I find it very, very interesting that this symbol of peace that the hippies adopted and grabbed onto, they used it. They used the upside down version of it. And I'm not even sure that those guys were lucid enough to understand they did that. Because every time you see the peace symbol, it makes me chuckle because it's literally a symbol of evil. Literally.
Filthy boomers.
Well, I'm just
Worst generation
saying.
ever.
They were probably so stoned out of their mind. Someone's like, yeah, that's a cool symbol, and they were just so out of their mind that they didn't realize they used the wrong version of it. Because it should be facing up, but it's facing down. And of course, that's an evil symbol. So I mean, they're a bunch of idiots, man. Or is it something more insidious? Right?
Nah, bunch of dumb hippies.
I think just dumb hippies, dumb dirty hippies. I think. But
Well, I would say that the hippies, at least the smarter ones or whatever you want to call it, the ones who were kind of behind that whole movement in the '60s,
mhm,
they knew exactly what they were doing,
maybe.
and they were absolutely anti-Christian, anti-Christ
Yeah,
figures
Well, they
in
were
the world.
probably intelligence assets that really got it going.
maybe. That's possible. Yeah, that's true.
And then
But
the other half of them were filthy, disgusting communists that should have been executed publicly. But
oh my
that's
God, you're such a revolutionary, dude. I love it.
correct.
But no, the peace symbol is quite a bit of a cock up, man. Although these guys might be right, it might have been actual governmental insinuation in the situation. Could it be? It's true. Uh, do the Rush 2112 Starman symbol? I don't know that, dude. Do you guys know anything about that?
That's the yeah, it's got a circle with like a kind of like an hourglass shape, and then there's another smaller circle to represent the hand at the
Oh
top.
yeah, give me a second. Give me a second. I'll get to it, dude. I didn't know that was another, but there's so much reference to that. Okay, cool. I'm going to get to that in a minute, Joe. Tolfer says, Big Dipper as timekeeper. Mind blown. Cool. Yeah, it's pretty neat, huh? Once again, it's not like the farmer doesn't know what season it is. It's not about the farmer. It's about the astronomer and the calculations necessary to measure things, right? Say no to the duck. Oh, what's wrong with steam yards? I use that. Zach and I are on with RT Bear, and it seems to work pretty well. Is there a problem with steam yards?
I don't know if that's what they're referring to, but I've heard that reference in the past.
Huh. Huh. Let's see. Mallet CNC works. Oh, CNC works. Hey. Or the Chevy logo. Yeah, no, so many logos are connected. And I'm going to get to my last bit here in a minute. I'm going to let these guys do some things first, though. A homie machine Messiah has showed me the strength of your singular eye. Yes, machine Messiah. Very nice, Joe. CBS knew there was more to All in the Family than we would ever catch. Oh, wow, wow, wow. CBSI Big Brother Eye Operation Paperclip. Interesting. I smell Dookie. Is someone talking about their brown eye? Well, do keep in mind that since you mentioned Dookie, it made me think of Doogie Howser, and they're coming out with a female version. Yay.
Oh God.
But then NBC has the peacock, and peacocks have 100 eyes, like Argos from the Greek mythology. That's right, Joe. And of course, the peacock is also used to symbolize the rays of the sun, right? Which we're going to get to momentarily. They all seeing eyes. They are, dude. It's all circular. It's all about the eye motif. Give us back the eye, Clash of the Titans. Yes. Very nice.
I like Joe too. He's a good commenter.
He is. I wish he'd come in and say hi to us. So I think he might have something interesting to say. Symbolism will be their downfall. Q. Oh, Madame Blavatsky, you brought her up, dude. Was a superstar of the turn of the century occult culture. Yes, she was. She was. Chicanery is still going on. Yes, yes. Thank you. Do you like the fact that I use that word, Nick? Uh, your friendly neighborhood ninja says, "Hello, ladies and gentlemen of high intellect. How's everyone doing today? I think we're doing well. I don't know if I'd claim the high intellect, but thank you." Maybe the ancients were just better at creating symbols that resonate throughout the ages. Maybe. Yeah, because they continue to be with us. And once again, that general theme that I've kind of brought up is, was it just a bunch of nerds or is this something more insidious? Hmm? Let's see here. You may not be ready for the boogaloo, but the boogaloo is ready for you. Oof. All right. Oh, goodness gracious. Orchestrated or glooming on versus geometrical patterns, judging archetypes. Okay. Jungian archetypes. Combo Bob says, not bad. Just like liking and dropping in to share from the work. Oh, thanks, Bob. John Dillard. Oh, this is going to be bad. I'm super ready for the boogaloo. I may not have preps or knowledge, but I'm more than willing to murder innocent women and children in cold blood. Well, thanks, John. Just saying. Squares, four sides representing completeness, as does the circle. That's right, Joe. Anton LaVey pointed out the haunted houses are always irregular rhomboids or trapezoids, and the energy goes in weird places. Interesting. Well, Anton LaVey is a perfect example of modern Satanism. It has nothing to do with Satan at all, actually. And you know who some of the most favorite adherents of modern Satanists are? Do you know who they are? Anybody, guys?
It could be a ton of people.
Cops. There's a lot of cops who follow the Satanic Bible from Anton LaVey. It's a bit worrying, actually.
I
But
don't
then
know
again,
anything about that.
well, it has nothing to do with Satanism anyway. It's about personal freedom, is what it really is, Anton LaVey. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. That's a different conversation, Joe. False idols, 2 + 2 = 5. That's right. Don't you forget it.
Hey, so cops are into Satan now? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, no, it's shocking, dude. Once you look in, that's a whole nother TFT we could do, dude. Shinkara stones, yeah, that's interesting. That's one of the three, isn't it? Apples make you gay now. All right. Thanks, Bullet. Nixie said, "Let's see how long it takes before Chester dumps on Macintosh." No, I'm not gonna do it. Go ahead. What'd you say, model?
I said I've eaten enough of them. anything could happen, I'm sure.
I suppose.
Probably be a stick in your butt.
Let's see. I think I've pretty much caught up. I'm doing my best to try to keep the chat involved. It's hard on this show, though. Sammy Davis Jr., I don't know why that was brought up. I'm not going to touch that one. I'm coming back. All right. Now, before I do that, I do go into my last segment, which we'll finish the show with. I do want to come over here and, of course, if Thundera or Zach have any topics they want to talk about, please just bring it up. But I want to go into a subject that Model wanted to talk about. And I thought it was pretty cool. So, Model, go ahead and take it away because he wants to talk about the idea of symbolism instead of the actual object that is a symbol. I thought that was pretty cool. Go ahead, dude.
Well, the example that I had given to you, Chester, was because there's a lot of examples of it, and it's the agreed upon faith in symbols amongst a group of people or a society.
Mhm.
Like in particular, we have all these symbols that people recognize as acronyms, all over the place, whether it's terms for Wall Street, terms for banking. We've turned so many different things into acronyms. So, like for instance, in our banking and in our currency, it's entirely symbolic because none of it exists.
Yeah.
And the only thing that really exists as far as wealth that trades hands is interest on money that doesn't exist. So when we were originally talking about doing this last week, no one ever told me we weren't doing the show, so I sat for days waiting to get the
I do
link
apologize. Yeah.
to the hangout. But that was because, again, this is, like I said, this is another one of the nebulous topics sometimes that we get into that could be done in multi-part shows. You could go in so many different directions.
Yeah.
And then there are physical symbols themselves on the currency, on
Yeah.
every currency.
That's right.
That usually are not important to the people that are using that currency. They're important to the people that are creating that currency.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we're talking, of course, that's very true, and I actually had a money on one of the clips, but we all know how the American money is just full of symbology. But the idea that fiat currency, which in itself has the paper has no value at all. There's no longer any gold behind the money. Therefore, it's simply something that is agreed upon, or as this little thing I brought up says, fiat money derives its value from government regulation or law, which is true. It doesn't have any actual value. But I think the thought of the symbology of fiat currency is a very interesting one because the whole world uses it, and yet it's built upon nothing. Thundero or Zach, do you guys have?
Requires faith of people
It
to
does.
continue to believe that it has value.
Yeah,
Even our coinage used to have value. It used to have silver
did.
content.
it did.
Yeah.
And going way back, it had gold content. Yeah, and it had actual nickel. Now the currency is worth nothing.
Yeah.
Like pre-1982 pennies are worth 2.2 cents or 2.3 cents. They're actually worth more than the face value of the coin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Zach?
Yeah, no, just to extend on that, like the fact that, our dollar is just it's an IOU note. It's not actual. It has no value. Inherent value.
At any time, that can come apart too.
Yeah, and it's coming apart right now. While they're sitting there just printing money, and all the people that are like, we'll just print more money so everybody can buy more food and stuff. And it's like, well, if the farmers stop making food, that money, it's not going to buy you nothing.
Well, originally when fractional reserve banking was set up, there was guidelines in place that it was going to be, you had to have 10% of the money at any given time in your possession.
Yeah.
And of course, now there's no way. And even with like our debt is in the tens of trillions. There is no way it will ever be paid back. So what has to eventually happen is they have to wipe the currency. They have no
Mhm.
choice. It cannot be paid back.
Well, and
Mhm.
and and that kind of brings up interesting point. I'd like to hear what Thundero has to say on this as well. But it brings up interesting point. Seeing as the fiat currency has no value at all these days, especially because they cannot maintain that percentage that they were originally required. Why then do all these things like banking and debt calculation and all these things? Why do these actually exist? Seeing as there is no actual value to the money, it's more like a barter tool.
Mhm.
Um, that's actually really easy to explain. The people who have all the actual wealth use it to keep the peasants in line.
Mm,
Uh, that's really all it is. The people who own this world, as George Carlin used to call them, the owners, they don't care about money. They don't give a white hot
They
crap.
don't use money, and people
yeah.
don't
No,
understand that. The truly rich do not use money.
Yeah.
no.
No.
All they get whatever they just say, "Hey, bring me this,"
Yep.
and a helicopter gets dropped off in their yard. They do not exchange currency. That is for us. That's for the peasants.
Yeah.
They have the
Go ahead.
actual wealth that the money is supposed to purchase.
Hmm.
That for us, like if I wanted to go buy a car or whatever, well, they own all the factories anyway, so they just get the car for free. They just
Yeah.
walk in. I want that one.
I
They
just
get it,
bought a car.
right? Right, exactly. It's just the as he called them, the owners. They have all the power because whoever has all the money is the saying. Whoever has the gold makes the rules. Well, they have all the gold. They have all the oil. They have all the land that matters. They have they have every single natural resource that is actual wealth. Money is just a a ability to trade your time indirectly.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's all it ever was. Because you can't obviously do everything with your labor, but you can do a few things, and then you can use that money to trade your time for. You trade your time for that money, and then you can use that money to trade other people's time. That's all you're doing. You're just trading time. They don't do
Mhm.
that because they don't have to do that. They have actual wealth. It's nothing. It's not their time they're trading. It's yours, and that's something that people have to realize. Money is our money is fake. It's been fake for a long time. The only thing it's really backed by is illusions and force, um and the and oil, but that's a different topic. um there's no real going back either. If you were to go back to a gold standard, you'd have to seize the gold pretty much from all over the world
Yeah.
to have even remotely the same value that the money has. Well, not value,
Which,
but the
by the way,
market
China
has
is
right.
trying to do, by the way.
Yes, and China has ridiculous reserves of gold.
Yeah, they've
I
been
remember
really
just
on
a
it.
few, I think it was last year or a year before, some magistrate in one of their provinces was found with just ridiculous amounts of gold,
Yeah.
absurdity in value, um, in which obviously the Chinese government seized because he wasn't supposed to have it. But the the real value in the world, the real wealth, is the thing they want to keep you from getting. It's the thing they want to give you a 30-year mortgage for something you could pay off in 10 if they didn't have a ridiculous interest rate and fees that are unnecessary. It's the entire financial system is a scam from the top down. And by the top, I don't mean Donald Trump, right? He's real wealthy and powerful, but he's not at the top. He's not even
No.
It's not even
close.
close.
I'm
No.
talking the real powers of the world. Definitely, they're all very old, and I don't know. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll pull off another generation where they're in control. I just don't see that happening.
Well,
I think the cat's out of the bag.
Well, they
well,
all have they all have lineage that
they
continues.
do. And keep in mind, those families that you're talking about, they have been at this for a couple hundred years, 150
Mhm.
years, quite vigorously. So this is not nothing new. They have an agenda, and they have been 100% successful with it. Um, it is interesting to me. I have a question for you guys. You guys watch Tucker Carlson?
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. I like Tucker. On Fox News, they've always had some interesting characters. They had Papa Bear, of course, for a long time until he got kicked out. We have Hannity, which I like Hannity. He has, way back from his
Yeah,
Hannity Combs day unto now. But at least he's
he's a creep.
honest about his politicking. He's not gonna he's straight up. I'm a Republican. I support the Republicans. But Tucker's a little bit different, and it's very interesting to me that Fox News allows Tucker all the freedom and power he's gained, because Tucker is a rare beast. He will go after anyone he deems to be anti-public. And I'm so really surprised he's been given the freedom he has been given. And I think it's cool that he has. But Tucker had a little blurb the other day, or yesterday, the day before. It was only a couple days ago, and he was mad. I mean, Tucker gets a little frustrated sometimes, but he usually keeps his cool. But he was just pissed, and he was talking about how certain governors and certain politicians in America, which we mentioned at the beginning of the show, are treating the people like plebs, and it really irked him. And these cops going out and just berating people for completely ignoring constitutional rights in America, and of course he's right. It's outrageous behavior, outrageous behavior. But
Well,
I
there's only one thing on this earth that has value. You guys know what that is, right?
land,
Labor.
labor. Oh, okay.
Even land. Land doesn't even have like people that don't own their land.
No, you
Somebody
don't.
does,
That's true.
but he's way above your pay grade. But your labor is what they trade. You are a commodity. That's why you have a social security number. That's
Yeah.
why you get certain bonuses to keep you going to work.
Placated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Labor is the one thing, and even more valuable than gold, because gold may in some cases come out of the ground easy, but in most cases it doesn't, and it requires a lot of labor and resources to get it.
Mhm.
So that's part of the value of gold, not just the gold itself, it's the labor.
Yeah.
And then the labor to actually create it and make it into something. So guard your labor. That's
So,
what the income tax is actually about. They are not supposed to be, constitutionally, they are not supposed to be taxing your
no,
labor.
no.
They're supposed to they were allowed to tax income, which is profits on a business, not your labor.
Well, you do realize the income tax, creation of the IRS and the income tax itself, over 100 years ago now, that actually was never actually ratified by the states.
Correct. Was it Christmas Eve or New Year's
Oh
Eve
yeah,
or
they
something?
snuck it
They had
in.
like
Yeah,
a partial vote.
yeah, they snuck it in.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it was never ratified. So technically, it's not legal, but yet it is, right? But there's many things that go against the Constitution in America, which makes America kind of unique. But they don't seem to care, and that's the reason why I mentioned Tucker Carlson, because you have many of these political leaders and using the police as they often do, that are just completely disregarding the rights that we were given, and it was intentionally set so that we could protect ourselves from it, particularly gun rights and stuff like that, so we could stand up against such tyranny. And they're showing their true stripes, brother, because they're
Sure.
just
The police are
disregarding
now an
it.
armed security force to
Yeah,
keep the power in place.
yeah.
The police are there to make sure you can't pull a bad judge out of a courtroom, that you can't get a bad mayor out of its office. That's what the police are there for now.
What do you think about this, Sandero?
They don't even care about crime on the street. And in fact, they've been it's been ruled by the Supreme Court. They have no obligation to even protect you or to serve you. That's not what the police are there
I
for
know.
anymore.
I remember when they acknowledged that too. That was like, whoa, Thundero. I know you have an
That's
opinion
crazy.
on this, dude. It is crazy.
I think when the common man lost the desire, the drive, and the ability to militia in mass numbers constantly, we lost our country. And we've had it lost for a very long time. Some would even say since the Civil War. But the solution to all of this, like Model just said, these police will stop you from dragging out a bad judge and giving him actual justice, or a bad mayor, or a bad governor, or whatever. Um, the solution to all of this is always the same solution that the West has always fall back to when tyranny gets out of control: is the militia.
Yeah.
We have to get back our sovereignty, not our liberty, our sovereignty. That's greater than liberty. That's more important than liberty. Because without sovereignty, liberty is irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you're free, if you're only free to live in a cage. We have to get it back. And the only way to get that back is the same way that we got it back the first time.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to bloody their nose. It's just
Yeah.
reality.
It's rough, but it's possibly true. Zach, I mean, are we revolutionaries, brother?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're American, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah, super American, super America. Yeah, and
The patriots are thirsty.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm kind of just waiting to. I don't know if I mentioned that. I'm just waiting for to see what happens in Maine, really, because I think that's
Why?
where it's going to start. Because
Why?
in
Not
Maine,
Virginia, Maine. Why?
Because the governor said we are going to be in this intense, really super restrictive lockdown perpetually. She like literally said till I say no.
Do they have
She
any
declared
cases at all?
like none.
Yeah. Huh.
Uh huh. So it's like if there's ever a place to do it, and also they're up there, and if too much Canadian starts rubbing off on them up there, and she gets the crazy idea to try and ban guns, like the Canadians did.
Well, we're seeing it in many places in America too. Kansas, Virginia, California, etc.
Can I just mention something? All
Yeah.
blue, all blue.
Oh no,
They
that's true.
can make all the little laws they want. At the end of the day, the only real power comes out of a barrel of a gun,
Yeah.
and that's just the reality of it. If
How
enough Americans have enough, and it's just enough, it doesn't matter what your political leanings are. You got left and right coming together on this. These
Mhm.
people are tyrants, and they need dealt with the way tyrants are dealt with. Period.
you know,
And
I
we're warning them for decades. Stop. Please stop. You're going to push it too far, and then someone's going to die. And it's not going to be us. It's going to be your
If they
family.
take away all peaceful options to get redress,
yeah.
that to where you can't even vote anymore, you can't even vote for change. Once they take that away, there's nothing left.
That's true.
Correct.
It is true. And I'm kind of curious what you guys think about this. I mean, we're a little off subject, but that's all right. I'll bring it back here in a minute. But if you guys recall, Obama did something I thought was quite shocking. He did many shocking things. But one of the things he did is he gave the internet out away from America. He gave it
Oh my
away. And I'm
yeah.
kind of wondering if that might come back to bite him. Because one of the things about the internet is people who may possibly want to do a boogaloo. It could be an extremely useful organizational tool, and America giving away the control of it means that they can't shut it down so easily anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a switch.
I imagine.
I,
Yeah.
I'm sure they can shut it down completely.
Still, you think they kept that even
Oh
though they
yeah.
gave it away? Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Cut the power off. But the problem is the revolutionaries will do better in the dark than they will. They need the internet more than revolutionaries do. Revolutionaries just need to go cause chaos. That's easy. Anybody can do that.
Yeah.
Shoot up enough places. Done. Chaos. Go to a governor's house and shoot it up. Chaos. Right. There's no stopping fourth generation warfare once it comes home,
Mm.
and it's coming home. And this country is not prepared for it. The police are at their limits of what they're capable of doing. They are nothing more than a basic policing force. They're not a garrison like they think they are. When this stuff hits the fan hard, they will scatter or they'll join the rebels to save their life.
They'll be
Yeah.
burying
Simple.
those uniforms. I guarantee it. I know a lot of police officers, and they know the score.
Yeah, it's interesting that we went this side, but of course it was because we brought up fiat money and the esoteric symbology involved in it, and of course this has led us to this conversation, and it's an interesting one. But let's bring it back and finish up today's. No,
You're fine. I'm just
okay.
being young lad.
I see. And let's kind of wrap up what we perfect timing actually, where I was now. Now I left us off here. Now we kind of covering, the general idea of symbology itself, which we know we've talked about before. The religious implications, a little bit of a questioning of is this insidious or is this just nerdy people wanting to represent themselves in clever ways? And what this brings us to, I think, is a very interesting conversation unto itself. Where does all of this come from and how is it connected? Now, this right here is the Visica Piscis. Now, I don't know if you guys know this or you've ever heard of it, but of course, I think it is the center of symbology. And Now, most people, if you asked what it is, they would tell you that, oh, this is coming from the Pythagorean math. It's used for lens math and stuff like that. But of course, this is far older than Pythagoras himself. This is another ancient symbol. It's been around for a long time. But this symbol right here didn't really come into such prominent use until the Catholics. Now it was used, and there was plenty of it. You can find it all over the place in architecture and stuff. It's not like it wasn't unimportant. It was, but the Catholics really glommed onto this hardcore. And they use it in every damn thing they can. And once again, we're bringing ourselves to the image of the circle. Now, do you guys understand what this really truly represents?
I do, and we discussed that. I'll let you go, Chester.
All right, Thundero, Zach.
Nope.
All right.
No, I don't. What do you got?
Well, this right here is an ancient symbol for the vagina. But it is. It
I'm
is
gonna
a
go
fertility symbol. And of course, the many religious people for a long time before the Catholics, they used it as the birthing of the holy word or the holy God from heaven, right? And of course, you can see this in many ways. If we come over here and we take a look, we see the Jesus coming out of the Piscus. We see that, of course, these original symbols I was showing you, even with the Mason symbology, it's all coming out of this Piscus symbol, this circular form. And if we go back, I'm sorry.
Continue.
Yeah. That when I showed you those other things over here, and we were looking at all this symbology, I kept pointing at the circular nature of things. And this is very interesting. Now, of course, the circular image, not only does it represent over here with the vaginal womb, but it also represents the sun, of course. And the sun symbol has been around with us forever. And of course, we see this symbology everywhere, as you see with the Catholics, because it's so important to them. You can see the piscus is used in many, many of their symbology. You go into any Catholic cathedral or anywhere, especially in Vatican City, you see the symbol of the piscus everywhere, everywhere. And once
Well,
you
Pisces
realize it,
refers to Pisces, the
it does.
constellation
It
Pisces.
represents to the fish. And of course, the fish is a symbol of the reason why it was related to Jesus, not because of just the cosmology of the age of Pisces that they had entered in, that he's a symbol of representing the age of Pisces, but it's also because the fish itself has always been represented as a symbol of a fertility. And I think it might go back to the fertilization aspects of fish and how they were used in farming and stuff as well. But I also have some examples of a whole bunch of various companies that use the piscus, and of course, you guys now are seeing the all-seeing eye of Horus. Of course, is a piscus itself, and I just find it very, very fascinating that the Catholics have based themselves so soundly upon this concept of the female, the feminine. All right. And when you think about it, these guys, they wear. If you look at their hats, right? Their hats are actually coming from the ancient religions as a symbol of the fish, right? But it's also a piscus on their head. They wear feminine clothes, with the robes and stuff like that. There is so much feminine involved in the religion. It's a very interesting to where it's brought us today, because when we look at the Catholics, and particularly the secular, can I use the word Jubices? I'll use that one. They really, really push the feminine, and understand that the some things like, say, the homosexual agenda and things like that are coming out of that as well. And once again, it's the feminine, it's the illumination of the feminine. And look where we are today with this absolute vicious push toward feminism, and to hell with everything. We don't care what burns or what fails or what money is lost. To hell with it. We're going to bring the feminine. And the Vesica Piscis has become a more and more prominent symbol as the years go by. And I find it very interesting that it is religious based, even though it is the atheists that scream the loudest about it. What do you guys think about this concept?
Well, you hit on something that not a lot of people know, and it's it's not exactly something people like to talk about. But a lot of the basic Abrahamic religion, which is obviously now called Judaism, even though it's not really the same thing,
No.
uh, is very feminine minded. It has cognitive femininity, as it's called. And what that means is if you notice, they'll make a lot of, hang on one second. Sorry, I had to cough. They'll make a lot of very similar non logical arguments to defend their faith. And they'll also do this to promote other things. It's one of the reasons why you're seeing, even in modern Christianity, those arguments seem to be working. And you see a lot of Christians being swayed to embracing political Abrahamism, as I like to call it, um, which is Marxism. They're swayed to it. They're embracing it. You have trans pastors and all this other nonsense that's obviously against the Bible, but they've allowed these forms of very feminine rallying and shaming arguments, which they're not even arguments. They're just they're just attacks, to sway them into believing that they must change to fit a certain narrative, which is a very feminine way to view the world. It's a masculine trait to view the world, to look at the world and want to change it. It's a feminine trait to look at the world and how do I conform to it. They're evolutionary strategies of how each of us survive.
Yeah.
Men through dominance, women through undermining. Now, that doesn't mean women are bad. I'm not saying that. That's just how they are. That's just how they survive. There's nothing wrong with it if you put it in a proper context and a woman knows how to use that for good. Just like there's nothing wrong with a dominant male being a dominant male if he's a good man, right? If he's an evil dominant male, then he's evil and he's going to do evil things. The masculinity has very little to do with that, just like the femininity has very little to do with the other. But these religions, especially the Abrahamic ones, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, of course, come from a cognitively female culture. Jewish culture, I don't even like Jewish culture, you could say just Hebrew culture of that area, was very feminine, very effeminate. And they still kind of are. If you notice, they're not very large, usually anyway, generally speaking. They're not large, they're not masculine, super strong men. They just aren't that. That's just not what they are. Now you can
David
see
The
it's
versus
lineage is
Goliath.
carried down by the mother.
Yes, they get exactly. Another
Yeah.
example is the lineage is carried down by the mother.
Yeah.
So it's a feminine-minded, feminine-focused belief system. Catholicism, like you were talking about, this is one of the reasons they put so much weird emphasis on Mary, even though the Bible barely does. She
Yeah.
gets her blessing and she gets her place because she was chosen, but that's it.
That's it.
Jesus
Yeah.
talks down to her constantly in reality, not in a disrespectful way, but in a, I'm Jesus, you're not way, you're not equal to me. And she was never to be prayed to or worshiped or any of these things that Catholics do, but that's, if that's what they believe and it makes them happy, I have no problem with it. But regardless, the idea of the mother and the child is far older, as far as a religious symbol like you're talking about here, far older than Catholicism.
Oh,
And
yeah,
in
no, it
reality,
is.
people came in, took Christianity from Jesus Christ himself, the words of Christ, the supposed words of Christ that are down in the Gospels, took Paul, who I have lots of problems with Paul. I don't believe he was truly a follower of Jesus, but that's another topic. And they rewrote the intention of Jesus into a very feminine religion.
Oh, yeah.
It was militarized later by Westerners in the,
Well-
the Middle Ages, High Middle Ages.
Well, Martin
and that's when
Luther's Protestant Revolution had a lot to do with that. But anyway, go ahead.
Yes.
Well, every organized religion has an immaculate conception. That's a shared
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
theme for every
well,
religion.
speaking of that, I was actually going to make mention of that model because if we go back to the Eye of Providence, we go back to this Piscus and the earlier symbols we see with the Eye of Horus and the sun symbols and stuff. It's actually coming out of Horus and his mother Isis, right? And of course, we can use the Mesopotamian names if you'd like, but you guys understand what I mean. And of course, you understand that is the Immaculate Conception because Set had killed his brother. and she found all the pieces of him and tried to glue him back together, basically stitch him back together. But the only thing she didn't find was his penis. So a penis of gold was made to represent it, and she inseminated herself from her dead husband and had the birth of Horus. Horus was hidden in the rushes, kind of like Zeus was hidden in the cave, to later come back and destroy the destroyer Set. And also keep in mind that there are many ancient references which were changed later by the Greeks, by the way, the Ptolemy dynasty. But the early references that were Set, Isis was Set's wife, not Osiris's. Right. And once again, that brings us right back to the ancient ideas of Kronos and Zeus, or the older versions of it. The Immaculate Conception is nothing new. Another aspect of the Catholic Church, and my question I'm going to ask you in a minute, but let me say this first. For instance, little things like, say, the Galilean, Jesus of Galilee. There was no Galilee at that time, right? A Galilean was a type of priest that had been castrated, right? And the Catholic Church was absolutely full of them in the beginning. That's how they was their initial surge of priests were Galilean priests. Even in that early time, they were effeminating themselves. They would put on makeup and they would make themselves rouged like a woman. They would wear robes like a woman. It was a very much a thing that the Catholic Church was built upon 1500 plus years ago. And my question is, why did it take so long for their effeminate homosexual manner to take full light? Why did it take 1500 years for it to come to the point that we have now? And they're just basically out in the open. Everyone knows that a lot of the Catholic priests have trouble with their various pedophilia, pederasty, and things like that. So why did it take so long? Because it obviously was part of their origin. You know what I mean?
Well, there was numerous times where it was found out throughout
Um,
history, and different events would happen where certain realities of Catholic priests were discovered. We discovered them recently again. That they apparently have a large number of them who like to molest children, um,
yeah,
and that's nothing new.
it's
It's
not
never
new.
been.
No.
They've been
Don't you
doing it for
think
a very
though?
long time.
Don't you think that in the timeline though, the period of time where homosexuality was kind of frowned upon is relatively small? Because it's not anything new, and there are cultures where it was very widely accepted,
Oh,
like in the
Greeks,
Romans and
Japan, sure.
Greeks. Yeah, I mean, and it's just it's maybe mid 1800s to mid 1900s where it was like it's a short period of time,
Yeah, I'm
because
just
even among the royals, in England and France and Spain, I mean, it was rampant.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I just don't know why it took so long for it to become to the forefront that we have it today. And I just curious why it took so long. And I understand what Thunder is saying. Now I know Zach and Slick has been real quiet the whole time, but well, I'll start with Slick. Slick, do you have an opinion on my question?
I do not. That's why I haven't been speaking.
I
Most
see.
of this is new to me, so I'm just listening. I don't want to just talk out my ass. So
No,
there
I
you go.
see. Well, it's interesting though, right? It's new stuff, so that's kind of cool.
It is interesting. I don't know if I buy all of it, but I mean, I'm
Well,
willing to
Do you
listen.
do you think that the modern means of delivering media have really contributed to this a lot?
maybe the information age we're in, it could be. That's
Yeah,
why I'm asking the
absolutely.
question, because the first question I asked today was, well, one of the early questions I asked was, is it just people being clever and creative, or is it more insidious with symbology? And I think this brings that is part of the whole concept all the way through. We know that the piscus is a symbol that has been incorporated in every bit of its symbology since early days before we can even verify. And of course, we know in the modern day, the piscus and all its symbology is radically just everywhere in your face. You can't go anywhere without seeing the damn thing, and therefore that is coordinated. It is coordinated. So the question of, is it just being clever nerds in their basement, or is it insidious? It's a I can't answer the question, Slick. So I don't know.
We're
Well,
taking
I
that
mean,
symbol
if
back,
we're
Chester.
talking going back as far as the Venus of Willendorf, which is very viscous shaped
It is.
icon. Plus, it does have the vagina on full display as well as the breasts. It was obviously a fertility goddess of some sort. But I mean, the idea of the phallus is not that unusual as well throughout many different cultures. The phallus makes a very apparent appearance in many places.
It does,
Um,
but not
so
these
I'm not
days,
just
Slick.
talking. Well, maybe no, I don't know. We build freaking buildings that essentially look like phalluses.
They're
I mean,
functional though. They serve
yeah,
a
they are
purpose.
functional.
I would say the phallus has been thrown away long ago, dude.
Well,
Now,
I would say currently there is a rise in this feminizing ideal,
yeah,
and I've talked to you before. In fact, that I think that men even right now, I see them missing how to actually talk and walk. They don't have the swagger anymore. Of a lot of them
no,
don't have it, and then they're shamed for it. They don't have the deep voice. They run it up into kind of like right here, and they talk like this, and that's how they actually present themselves.
yeah,
They're not quite gay. They're not here. Oh
that's
my
my
God!
point. It's my point.
But it's
Yeah,
coming, and it's been taught in schools for people to hear it like this. And there's a I mean, people talking about this all the time about the radical drop in testosterone in males, especially in the West. We're going to get overrun if we don't,
yeah.
become
Well,
if we don't
if you
man up.
yeah, but see, it's like if you look at the animistic cultures, which are only recently wiped out, by the way. Many of our cultures, only 150, couple hundred years ago, 300 years ago, still had a lot of animistic factors to it. Animism, of course, being the standard religion of everything has a spirit, and in those cultures, the phallic was equally as important as it was to the vulva, because they're both important. They're the creation of life. But in I would say in the modern time, and the fact that we basically wiped animism off the face of the earth, it's hard to find it anymore. I think we have eliminated the phallus completely, and I think we are completely in the age of the vulva, and it's being pushed. It is intentional. Now, whether everybody is on board or not is not the question. Maybe they're just glomming on to something that they don't understand subconsciously. I don't know, but I'm just telling you. This piscis symbology is everywhere around you, and it's constantly in your head, whether you know it or not. Slick, you have not Slick, Zach, you have an opinion on this?
Uh, not one that I can say out loud.
Chester, we're taking that symbol. We're taking that symbol back. It's no longer a vagina. It's two cock rings.
All right, so
Yeah,
there you
I
go.
agree with this.
Yeah, but isn't a
The
cock ring in itself feminine?
I don't think so.
Isn't it?
Depends.
I would
Isn't
just
it?
say,
Not if
I
you
would
put
just
two
say,
on.
I would just say, take the symbolism back, as in just take the pussy back.
Okay, you could do it like that, Slick. We could do it like that. But I would say, I mean, in all seriousness, not being vulgar or joking around, model, I would say that's actually a symbol and a tool of the domination over the male,
Oh, dang it.
right?
I just dropped
And we're
something.
seeing a
Sorry.
lot of that. One thing I've noticed that I've seen a bunch of serious articles. I'm not talking about all the absolute insidious, and I consider it insidious infection of pornography everywhere around you. Now, and you guys know right well, I have no problem with a female body. I enjoy it, right? But we are inundated by pornography. You cannot get away
Yeah.
from it. But you know what I've seen in serious articles, not just pornographic or sex blogs or things like that, and things like Cosmo. Cosmo. I saw an article that was talking about the ultimate intimacy and the wonderful nature of pegging,
Oh
Yes.
yeah, it's
right?
getting out of control.
That is nothing but an absolute demasculinization of your male. And if you are involved in that, stop it. Stop it. Because that is
The
no good for
pornography
you.
is a
It's no good
problem.
for her either.
Pornography is a problem. The internet, the seclusion, the introversion, and the way people are not developing social skills to interact with one another, especially men with women, it's a problem.
Well, also, they've found that brains of young men that have like serious like addiction where they're constantly doing that dopamine, it's reacting in the same way as if it were a drug where you're constantly getting dopamine where it's changing your chemicals in your brain, so you think differently, and your motivation, like they're finding that people that are especially young men that use it constantly have like no motivation. Their testosterone levels are super low, and when they do scans of a health, like a regular kid and a boy who's hooked on it, you can see that their frontal lobe is shrunk.
Wow.
I saw a graph yesterday, and it was that 7% of men 18 and above reported, just 7% reported being virgins at 18 and after, whereas today in this study it was 27% from 18 to 30 men are reporting that to be virgins.
Right, and those are the
So
ones
that
that are
means
willing to
men are
mention it.
sitting in their rooms. They're sitting in their rooms playing video games. They're not getting out and going out and talking and learning how to have a conversation. I don't know if you have much interaction with younger people, teenagers. They are the
I
most
teach them
awkward,
every week, dude.
uncomfortable. Yeah, but they're probably not as bad as Americans.
True, and
These kids are
it's a
so
teacher-student relationship as
awkward.
well. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
They look at the floor when they talk to you. They're just weird. They're dysfunctional.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I get you. And here in Japan, that's actually a cultural quality. But in my classes, I demand they look me in the eye. I teach it as an English concept, a cultural concept. But and don't misunderstand me, anybody in the chat or anyone listening later. I'm not saying greater than thou type of ideas here when it comes to the pornography. I'm actually very luckily, by coincidence, lucky, I would say, because I never liked pornography. I've never liked it. And it's not from a religious point of view. It has nothing to do with that. I don't like being teased. I don't like it, especially physically so,
Well,
mentally so.
in the
I want a
pornography of
woman in
30
my
years
hands,
ago,
man.
pornography 30 years ago is not what pornography is today, with the spitting and all the gagging and just, I mean, that's the image these young boys are growing up.
Huh? What are you talking about?
All this like very aggressive, violent pornography. I mean, pornography is disgusting now. It's not just, it's not just sex. It's highly augmented, modified bodies covered in tattoos, and they're, it's just not what it used to be.
Well, one thing I have noticed, just from going around the internet, there do seem to be a lot more, or at least a lot more. They exist, which I never saw before. Is these transgender porn stars, I guess. I never saw that before, but they seem to be quite numerous these days. That's a new thing for me.
Nothing is off limits anymore.
Yeah, no, that's weird. And of course, you think this is odd that we're talking about this. No, it's not. It's the whole conversation has brought us to this, right? And my point of the piscus, whether you find it important or not, it's important to the people in charge, right? Because the visca piscis, this vaginal imagery, it is not only involved in all the symbology you see. It has been continuously put in your face. It also is attached to all the things we've talked about before, with the weird state of the aristocracy and the celebrity aristocracy of America and their pedophilia. It comes down to the symbology around the Key of Solomon, which the Key of Solomon is absolutely disgusting. It's so much so that I won't talk about it here. That's how bad it is. I won't talk about it.
What?
The Key of Solomon. You go research that shit on your own, man. But that's disgusting, and that's what these people believe. It comes back to the Saturnists and their symbology and their absolute control over the financial means of the planet. And I just, but I'm still befuddled because it took so long for this ideal that they kept amongst their elite cells for so long to be thrown onto the public. And I'm kind of, model might be right. It could be just simply that the option and the ease of modern social media has allowed them to do this. Do you think it's an intentional push, or is it just something that has naturally evolved, though?
Very intentional.
Yeah.
The cancel culture and stuff like that of getting, taking away people's livelihood is very intentional.
Well, okay. Anyway, so let's come back over here because we're almost at the end. Let me just catch up the chat a little bit, and then we'll have these guys give their closing ceremonies, closing comments. Interesting conversation today. I hope it was cohesive. We'll see. But Eric says, "What cock rings? Hey, pegging ain't so bad. It's just a thing, man. Open up to your hippiness, Chester. No, I won't. No." A model is building a model, Eagle 43 says. It's degeneracy. Yeah, I agree, Devilish. I need to start watching the porn model is watching. God. Work Epstein into it. Well, I mean, he was just a facilitator, guys. But it's interesting when you do this TFT thing. And I do apologize. I didn't read everything in the chat. I would like to, but it's hard, guys, because we're trying to keep a constant flow of conversation. But you know what I find interesting when we started doing this TFT? What has it been, a year now? A year or so.
Yeah.
And when we started doing this TFT, something that happened that I didn't expect, I guess I should have, but something that happened that I didn't expect was the fact that everything's freaking connected, dude,
No question.
in a
No question.
terrifying way. Yeah. It all
I
comes
don't.
back to this
I don't
theme.
believe in the amount of coincidences that we are asked to believe. Coincidence is supposed to be exactly what it means. When there's too much of it, it's by design.
Yeah, spontaneous alignment, but that's doesn't seem to be true. But I'm just really shocked that how many of these TFTs we do, they always come back to the same themes, and I keep saying, well, maybe it's just us, maybe it's just what we believe and what we think. But the problem with that is everybody here is very different. We don't all agree 100% on anything. I don't know, man. It's a bit terrifying that these conspiracy theories always seem to come back to the same thing: control. And I don't know, man. Anyway, let's let everybody here have the close. Well, we're perfectly on 2 hours, so let's go ahead and wrap it. Let's everybody here have the closing statements. So let's start with the young lad.
Oh boy. Hey, you can find me on Twitter at Zach_DB, and right now Golma is live for another 5 hours, 6 hours, and then it's done. 6 hours.
Hey, you've
5
had a
hours.
bit.
No,
You've had a push on it though. How you doing, man?
really good. We got to 70 backers, so I got past that 69, so I'm super happy.
Sweet.
And so I'm just extremely happy and extremely grateful, and I'm excited.
Well, sweet guys. Definitely. Someone put Golma's link in the chat, and go check it out if you haven't backed it yet. At least go look at it, put some eyes on it. We got a few hours left. We'd love to support Zach, of course. And it's not only just that. I mean, if you've seen his art, you know right well what you're getting. I mean, it's pretty impressive. So thank you, dude. Thanks for coming,
Thank you.
Mr. Slick.
Back Goldman while you still can. Definitely,
Yeah.
I've done that. Love his work. I'm going to try to entice Mr. Zach Bradley into doing some work for me if I can when the time comes for a second episode of Little Girl Lethal, which is still in demand on Indiegogo. We just finished the setting of the lettering, and then we're doing the editorial phase because I have noticed as I went through the lettering, I missed some things and have to adjust some other things, but we're moving ahead. It's getting close, and yeah, there we go. You can find me on Slick Jimmy Speaks on the YouTube and Slick Jimmy Love on the Twatters. So if you guys want to talk to me, that's where you can do it. All right, there we go.
Sweet. Ah, Mr. Thundero.
Yes.
Oh, I thought that was Todd for a second.
Right? No, he's Howard Cosell.
Chester, tomorrow
Uh huh.
when we do our show,
Uh huh.
are you cool with what I DM'd you about? We're gonna
Yeah.
just do me,
Why?
you, and maybe Booster.
Yeah,
He's
why
out of
not?
bed.
Why not? Yeah.
Just a school show. All the other guys like the Wolf in an Alley, if they're around, they can pop in too. But old school show. We'll so tomorrow we're gonna do an old school show, just kind of the core guys who are still around occasionally that started it all. Set some of the records straight on some things, clear some air on some things.
Mhm.
Other than that, we'll see you tomorrow. It's not going to be drama or anything. I'm not trying to sell it as that. That's not what I'm
No.
talking about. It's going to
Or
be
maybe it
simple.
will be.
It might be if Chester keeps interrupting me. No, I'm just kidding. Other than that, you are inundated with propaganda at all times, at all levels. If they
Yeah.
could, they'd beam it right into your brain while you sleep, and sometimes they kind of do. One thing I've always recommend to people that you should try. I'm terrible at this just because my brain won't shut off, so I have to keep it stimulated to put myself to sleep. But if you're not like that, turn off a screen, go away from a screen for an hour before you go to bed, and
Mhm.
just let your brain reset, and you'll probably have much more pleasant dreams than you did otherwise.
No.
Other than that, don't never let yourself be afraid of any of this stuff. Never let yourself be afraid to talk about this stuff with people. It's real. These people, for whatever reason, are putting these symbols into all of their marketing for some reason, whether nefarious or not. Don't close your eyes because you don't know the answer to the question. Keep asking, and eventually, maybe we'll get there.
Mm. Well said. Model?
Well, Chester, I don't know if you know, but I'm a huge Twitch star now. So
Hey.
if anyone wants to come over and follow,
You said you were a
it's
huge Twitch thought? What?
yeah. I'm body painting
Okay, sweet.
and doing some other things, painting my buns and things like that.
Uh-huh.
So if people want to come over there and check it out, it's Gridlock SYS on Twitch. Come over and follow. It's important because when you first start on Twitch, you're basically a non-person and you don't get to keep your videos. And so follows are important over there, even just a few followers.
Sweet.
But we
All
build models, we sculpt things, we do stuff like that. Just nonsense.
That sounds awesome. I always like to see what you're working on. I want to see this snow speeder when it's finished too. Anyway, all right, guys. Thank you very much for coming over here. This was a fun chat. Hope you guys are interested in it, and we didn't shock you too much, or at least maybe we weren't idiots enough. I hope you at least enjoy the entertainment of it. Nevertheless, stay safe, stay home, and don't cuddle the homeless guy in the corner, I guess. Namaste. Later.